Church leaders are reconsidering plans to sell more than 50 allotments in a Warwickshire village to a developer. Allotment holders have been fighting the proposals for the 180-year-old site at Wellesbourne. Kevin Reid reports.
Wellesbourne Allotments have provided food for hundreds of families for nearly 200 years, but the future is in jeopardy. The Coventry Diocese, who own the land, have been considering selling it to a developer at a time when they're as popular as ever.
There's so much demand, there's a 3-year waiting list for one of these plots, and those lucky enough to have one are dismayed at the plans.
I've had allotments since 1984. The land never cost them a penny. It was given to them. Now they want to sell it for millions.
We grew up with it from the 1940s onwards, so it's been part of our life all that time.
It's my plaything. You know, they build all sorts of play areas for children, all these developers, but all they want to do is take the allotments away from us.
A 3,000 signature petition opposing any development has been sent to the Diocese, who now say one possibility could be to allow the allotments to stay on one part of the site.
This is what we want to explore with the allotment holders. The Diocese's Board of Finance is a charity and we need to manage our resources in order that we can continue to carry on the mission of the church in Coventry and Warwickshire.
It may be a reprieve, but the allotment holders say the site is essential to the village.
This is one of the last places of amenity where people can gather. It goes well beyond growing crops. There's a great society here, and it would destroy part of Wellesbourne.
The Diocese has now promised to meet with the Wellesbourne Allotment Association to see if a compromise can be reached. Kevin Reid, BBC Midlands Today, Warwickshire.
Let us know about, please, on BBC Coventry and Warwickshire today. Going to be talking a little bit more about the allotments in Wellesbourne that I mentioned to Brodie about 25 minutes or so ago. They've been, for some families, in generations. They've been providing food for locals for over 200 years, and now, because the allotments are part of the land that's owned by the Coventry Diocese, just south of Stratford-upon-Avon, they could be sold. And the Coventry Diocese want to sell them, we think, to a developer, and we think potentially maybe for housing, but Coventry Diocese say they need the money. And it begs the question, do you need the money that much? You're depriving people of a very successful allotment scheme. So much so, in fact, there's a 3-year waiting list to join it. And the benefits, and we've spoken long and hard about this before on this programme, the benefits, forget about the food that's grown, forget about the fact that it's natural, forget about that, we're more in touch with Mother Earth. The benefits for people with mental health conditions of touching, feeling the soil, having some kind of self-esteem from growing their own food, having a place with which to take their thoughts and themselves and be productive, have been shown to have real value by those people who have done this sort of research for mental health conditions. And we're told all the time, aren't we, that we should be taking mental health awareness increasingly important, that people in years to come will speak of taking time to look after your mental health just as regularly as you should do to look after your physical health, and that working out and having exercise for your body so that you don't get overweight or obese will be treated exactly the same as doing the same for your mental health. Well, surely isn't allotments and gardening part of that process? That is something that should be encouraged, shouldn't it? Rather than actually closed off to people. Talk a bit more about that after 4 o'clock this afternoon. Love to hear from you. 0345 900 5200. BBC Coventry and Warwickshire. About the future of allotments in Wellesbourne, just outside of Stratford-upon-Avon. They provided food for over 200 years for families and many people in the area, but now the future is in jeopardy. The land that the allotment sits on, actually owned by the church, the Coventry Diocese to be precise, and they are now considering selling that land to a developer. They say they need the money. So we're going to be asking the Coventry Diocese a little bit later on exactly how much money they need, what's it for, and is there really no other way of them getting that money other than to sell off the land that is occupied by these allotments. They're not just any old allotments, they are incredibly popular, so much so there is a 3-year waiting list just to get a plot. Going to be hearing from one allotment keeper a little bit later on the programme. And I don't know, do you work an allotment? Do you have an allotment in your area? Has it been threatened with development, and have you managed to stave it off? Or are you, I don't know, are you nervous that this incident here in Wellesbourne could set a precedent that might threaten the allotment near you? 0345 900 5200, and please, the benefits you get out of keeping an allotment. Love to hear that, please. I was talking a bit earlier about the mental health benefits of that, and we're going to be hearing from someone a little bit later in the programme. We can sort of maybe just try and put a bit of meat on the bones of that statement. Someone who definitely feels the mental health benefits of keeping an allotment. But if I don't know, if you've got something to add to that, 81333. Start your text with CW this afternoon. What's great about your allotment? Let me know on BBC Coventry and Warwickshire. We'll talk a bit more after 4 o'clock this afternoon. Coventry and Warwickshire. Phil Upton with you, headed home for a Wednesday, and the Coventry Diocese now said to be reconsidering plans to sell more than 50 allotments in Wellesbourne to a housing developer. If you know the area, it's just outside of Stratford-upon-Avon, famous of course for its bank holiday markets and the like. Already the area has had to deal with the threat of losing its airfield to potential housing developers. Now allotment holders have been fighting the proposals for 180 years of allotments now potentially being threatened. They've even raised a signature petition, 3,000 signatures in fact, all part of the campaign to try and save their allotments. Those lucky enough to have plots been speaking to us here on BBC Coventry and Warwickshire about what the allotments mean to them.
I've had allotments since 1984. The land never cost them a penny. It was given to them. Now they want to sell it for millions.
We grew up with it from the 1940s onwards, so it's been part of our life all that time.
It's my plaything. You know, they build all sorts of play areas for children, all these developers, but all they want to do is take the allotments away from us.
We only had the plot for 1 month, but we've been waiting a number of years, and it's just very disappointing, you know, what's happened really.
Coventry Diocese say they have obligations to support the mission of the church in the local community and to make best uses of resources to support that mission. They admit, though, that there is what they describe as tension around the plans.
This is one of the last places of amenity where people can gather. It goes well beyond growing crops. There's a great society here, and it would destroy part of Wellesbourne.
It's a great line, isn't it? There's a great society here. Didn't we hear a lot from David Cameron when he was Prime Minister about our wider society, and allotments and gardens represent part of that, don't they? BBC Coventry Warwickshire's Kevin Reid, the voice you heard there. You can hear more and see more of his report on Midlands Today after 6:30 tonight. But I've been really keen to hear from you today if you're an allotment holder and what's great about your allotment. 0345 900 5200, please, on BBC Coventry and Warwickshire. The Diocese in Coventry had a meeting after what's known as the Glebe Committee, a very powerful group of clergy inside the diocese. It manages all their estates and the land that they own. BBC Coventry Watch's Joan Cummins has been talking to the diocesan secretary. Her name is Ruth Marlowe, and now Ruth Marlowe speaking to Joan Cummins about why they have now apparently had a change of heart.
The members of the Glebe Committee have listened very carefully to everything everybody has said, and they have a sympathy for some of the issues raised by the allotment holders, and particularly they have a sympathy for their desire to remain on the current site and for the work they do in the community from that site. And the members of the Glebe Committee are looking to see how we can accommodate that at the same time as maintaining their responsibility to manage their land effectively.
Is it safe to say that all the allotment holders can now rest assured that they're not going to be moved off the site and that they can maintain their plots?
This is what we want to explore with the allotment holders. What the Glebe committee members have said that they are open to exploring in further detail is the disposal of a smaller piece of land and being able to accommodate everybody's needs within Wellesbourne.
What are you now proposing happens? What's the next stage?
I've written to the chair of the Allotment Holders Association and I've asked for a meeting with him to discuss some of these things that I've just mentioned to you this afternoon.
And why is it all happening anyway? Why is there the need to sort of look at the land and maybe carve it up and sell it off?
Well, as I'm sure you're aware, the Diocese's Board of Finance is a charity and we need to manage our resources in order that we can continue to carry on the mission of the church in Coventry and Warwickshire. The resources available to the Diocesan Board of Finance is that is given to us by members of the church and money that we are able to raise through our investments, such as the glebe land, and therefore we are continually looking at our finances to ensure that we have resources to pay the stipends and pay for the housing of our priests.
So it literally is going to sort of the maintenance of the fabric of the church?
Absolutely, and glebe land is specifically for stipends and housing and for matters relating to vicars and people within the church.
There's no magic funding coming from anywhere? I mean, where does the funding come from?
As I say, the funding for the church comes from the members of the church, people that attend church and put money in the plate. That is where the money from the Church of England comes from.
So you can see their dilemma and you can see why they need money and why they're looking around at everything they own, the land and their various estates, as they call it, and finding out whether they can raise money from that. On the other hand, this is something that is of immense community value. We've heard there, haven't we, from voices of people who say it's been in our family since the 1940s. The allotments themselves been there for 180 years. Why pick on this particular set of allotments more than any other? We're going to be hearing from someone who is an allotment goer in Wellesbourne, who is very, very precious about their allotment. In fact, arguably says that without it, her life would be markedly diminished. Going to be hearing from her a little bit later on after 5 o'clock. And I'd love to hear from you as well, please. 81333. Start your text with CW. What do you get out of having an allotment if you're an allotment holder? Why is your allotment great?
BBC Coventry.
Big day tomorrow, they open. Coming up for you after 5 o'clock, more for you on the threat that's been made to allotments in Wellesbourne. It's, people feel strongly about this. Had a text message already. John in Binley, you should tell Hugh Fernley-Whittingstall. He'd be outraged. He's campaigned, hasn't he, to try and save allotments. Sharon Underhill is from the Wellesbourne Allotment Association. Hi, Sharon.
Hi, Phil.
So, obviously, you heard there our interview at 4 o'clock with the Coventry Diocese Glebe Committee Secretary Ruth Marlow. What do you make of what she had to say?
Well, I think we're really, really pleased. They have listened to the public concern and the allotment concern and the local people, how much they value these allotments. They are literally the jewel in the crown of Wellesbourne. As it's growing, we're getting less and less valuable community assets. We need more, not less. So the fact that they've listened to us and they understand that we are big supporters of everything that happens in the community is good.
One thing I know you think is on your side, there is a clause, you believe, in the way the diocese operates when it comes to raising monies and funds for it, that you think might help your campaign. Am I right, Sharon?
Yes. I mean, the diocese state that they are under an obligation by the Charity Commission to maximise their assets, to keep their church going. But they also have an obligation which is called the public benefit.
Mm-hmm.
And what that states is that the charity mustn't do anything that benefits themselves where the detriment and the harmful effects outweigh their actions.
Right.
So they're not allowed to do anything that is detrimental or harmful to people and the environment.
So if you by selling off the allotments, that potentially could be deemed as detrimental to the environment, and therefore that would preclude them from doing that.
Not so much the environment. Yes, it would have an impact on the environment because the allotments are a great place for wildlife and diversity. But it's more about the people.
Yeah.
This is a fantastic asset. You talked earlier about society, or our chairman talked about society.
The Great Society, you said.
There is a great society down there. There's older people, there's young families with children, there are people like myself who spend the whole week at a blooming computer, and we go down there and you breathe the fresh air, you have fantastic food, and we are a very, very strong community-minded group. There's a great sense of friendship down there. And, you know, it's just so sad to see these small pockets of good things happening being threatened in this way. They've tried over the past decade many, many times to bring a proposal for developing the allotment.
I know you're going to get to sit down with Ruth Marlowe of the Coventry Diocese. They are going to reconsider, they say, their plans now to sell off these 50 allotments. So that is something. It doesn't mean to say that, you know, that's not an outright no, they're not, but they're going to sit down with you. Do you think the land will be sold?
Eventually.
Really?
Yes.
So what you're saying is your campaign is there, but it's just going to put off the inevitable.
Yes, I think it's a stay of execution.
Right.
Yeah. What they're suggesting, we think, but we haven't met them yet, but what we think they're going to suggest is that they take just the part of the allotments, a small part, which has the access to the main road. That way, the access, if they get access to the main road, they can then build houses
You've then got your houses, yeah. All right.
Once we're surrounded by houses, then they can go to phase 2, which will be to sell our plots. Really, the only way we can secure the future of these allotments is to have them in our ownership.
And take that ownership away from the Coventry Diocese and hand it to you. How likely is that, Sharon?
I think so. Well, one of our arguments is they've never paid a penny for this land. They obtained it during the Enclosures Act, the Wellesbourne Enclosures Act, in 1733.
Yeah.
So it was part of that land grab. So they've never paid a penny for it. Really, it's been gifted in their care for the benefit of Wellesbourne.
And you think it's better off being run for the benefit of Wellesbourne if it's taken away from the temptation of what might be presented to the diocese by land developers?
I think temptation is the
root of all evil.
On the head,
if we may quote the biblical text. Sharon, appreciate your call. Thank you very much. And that gives us some kind of context, doesn't it, to the conversation that we're having this afternoon about the future of Wellesbourne's allotments. Like I say, they're over, well, almost 200 years old, 180 years old at that site. 3,000 people signed a petition. Going to hear from someone else who desperately loves her allotment, gets so much value out of keeping her allotment. Going to be with us after 5 o'clock this afternoon.
BBC Coventry.
5:10, it's Phil Upton headed home on BBC Coventry and Warwickshire, and more for you on the future of allotments in Wellesbourne, with the Coventry Diocese telling us on BBC Coventry and Warwickshire today they now are reconsidering plans to sell more than 50 allotments in Wellesbourne to a housing developer. Now, allotment holders have been fighting the proposals for the 180-year-old site in Wellesbourne. They've even raised a petition that's got 3,000 signees to it. So why is it even up for sale in the first place, quite frankly? Ruth Marlowe is the secretary of the diocese and spoke to BBC Coventry and Warwickshire earlier today.
The Diocese's Board of Finance is a charity, and we need to manage our resources in order that we can continue to carry on the mission of the Church in Coventry and Warwickshire. The resources available to the Diocesan Board of Finance is that is given to us by members of the Church, and money that we are able to raise through our investments, such as the glebe land, and therefore we are continually looking at our finances to ensure ensure that we have resources to pay the stipends and pay for the housing of our priests.
Let me just read you out just some of the comments we've had on this, and it has sparked many of you to call us and text us this afternoon. Julie on the Talbot, Phil, really the allotments sell-off. I think we all know the Church of England and the Catholic Church are rich in land and buildings and art. They shouldn't need to do this. They have plenty of money and assets they could otherwise dip into. Phone lines lighting up in the last half an hour. One call we took was from the Wellesbourne Allotment Secretary, Anne-Marie Ortu, who says this is not a reprieve that the Diocese has given, just a pincer movement. She claims they will move again, that the land that the Wellesbourne allotments are on was actually gifted to the Wellesbourne community, and it is a disgrace to take it from the community and sell it to landowners. Someone who is nodding ahead vociferously to that across from me is Jess Pinson. She's one of the allotment users with us in the studio this evening. What's the allotment mean to you?
It means a huge amount to me and my family. I've got a young family, and we... Okay, I'm not going to lie, I'm not up there all the time. You've heard some people today have the most beautiful plots. They're up there all the time. I work full time, I commute, I have a family to look after, I'm a carer for my mum, I volunteer, I have a lot of family and friends. Life is good, but I need my allotment for my well-being. I use it for my health and I use it for my mental well-being. We're all living in these massively busy times. The phone goes all the time. We're doing this. My work is busy. My allotment, I get there late. I do the best I can. Not great. I love it.
This idea that you need it for your mental health being... I was talking about this about an hour ago and saying that, you know... and we've heard a lot about mental health lately over the last couple of years, so much so that the government says, you know, we should be paying more attention to it. This is one of those areas that helps with that, isn't it? For you to be in touch with, you know, for want of a better phrase, Mother Earth, for you to be feeling the ground, for you getting some self-esteem out of actually your own productivity in your allotment. All of these things would tick boxes if you were sat in front of a counsellor and a mental health practitioner to say, you know, you're getting some benefit from this.
They do. I get the benefit. My neighbours get the benefit. My family get the benefit because I'm not such a monster. But also, you know, we grow food for the food bank. We've got a dementia-friendly pot for people in our community who are battling with that. And we've got this amazing new space that we've created. It's a huge community. We all get different things from it. I can represent myself. But there's a lot of us there. And people who are allotment will recognise this. We do things together and for each other. And we are bonded, in a way, through the soil, all that twee stuff, which incidentally has scientific health benefits. Sticking your hand in the soil is healthy, aside from what we eat.
There is some research that points to the fact that the benefits to that. So what I'm getting from you is there's a very human side to this. There's a huge community spirit you've obviously spoke to of there. It's certainly not just for old people, if I may say, Jess. I mean, how old are you? Can we say? It's rude to ask a lady, I know, but...
I am 41.
Okay.
I know, I don't look it.
We're not old... You know,
quickly with that, thanks very much.
Jess, no, really? You don't
I know,
right, okay.
But I have had an allotment since my early 20s, which not everybody expects, but there are so many people like this, and we're all backgrounds, all cultures. My first allotment was just off the Holyhead Road, and we were all sorts of people there, great joy, but we do things that you might not expect, like the NGS have an open day scheme runs across the country. We will do that this year on the 17th of June. We will raise thousands of pounds for charity, local charities and a national charity. We contribute more than the sum total of our courgettes, that's for sure.
That's a good line. All right, okay. One thing we were just speaking about 15 minutes ago, another one of your fellow allotment holders in Stratford, the legality of the church taking this away from you. This land was gifted to you. The church is not allowed by the Charities Commission to raise money, or at least I just want to quote the phrase so I get this absolutely correct. They're not allowed to maximise assets to the detriment of the local environment. This would surely fall foul of that, wouldn't it?
Yeah, so the land was gifted into the church's care, into a vicar's care, and it became part of the glebe system very recently, but it was gifted into their care, according to the documentation we found through the archives, 1733. And then it was actually in the last, I think it's around 40 years ago, that the glebe came in and drew all of those assets into one big pot, because I understand that from the Charity Commission there is a responsibility to manage assets wisely, but there's also another responsibility from the Charities Commission, and that's about that what they do, the purposes must be beneficial, and there shouldn't be any detriment or harm that results from this purpose for people, property, the environment. It's not to outweigh the benefit.
And clearly there would be.
From my perspective, being deeply in there, and these people who are making the choices are not deeply in there. They're not rooted in that community.
So the diocese say they're now reconsidering. You've got to be happy with that they've at least moved on that.
I recognise, I've read the letter, grateful for the recognition that we're a community asset, we have value, that we are humans with benefit for this, but I think it actually belays the true fact. They were looking at our plots to begin with, not the surrounding land. They were going to move us, they were going to split us onto 2 plots. Right. Actually, what they're saying now is they'll take some of that land and they'll use the other plots around us, which I think is telling us that was always the goal, wasn't it? We'll start big, we'll get bigger. Once that impediment is out of the way, we'll move on to the next thing.
An impediment.
Absolutely. And that land, actually, since the land that they're talking about, that's recently had a planning application turned down on it. There's many good reasons for that, but as a large village, small town, rural urban centre, we've taken more than our share of housing as required through the local ordinance for that. We've done more than we should, actually. We are busting at the seams, and people from Wellesbourne will say the infrastructure's got to grow before we can have houses. So that's a personal point, not about the allotments. But it is relevant that they're coming at us now and they're saying, we would like to talk. Finally, we'd really like to work this out with you. I value that. Right. I'd like to point out I'm plot 3 on those allotments. Okay. That's the bit that's going. Right. And I'm coming into my busiest time of the year with everything, family, work, everything. Yeah. I was just about to gear up. Can't tell you how heartbroken I am to be thinking about the money and the time I was going to dedicate into that plot now. You know, how soon are they going to sell this land? How many years are we going to be dealing with developers? Because it's not them, they'll sell an option on the land. And every year, every planning cycle, each new opportunity, these
threat comes up.
These big boys from the planning people, they're going to come in and they're going to have all the arguments and a huge legal team, and we're going to have to battle and battle. And it's not just us, it's the people around us, it's the village. I've been there collecting those 3,000 signatures on the petition. People are in tears. They feel that strongly about it. I can see
you getting upset about it.
I'm really upset about it. My son goes there. He's 11 years old. He knows where his food comes from. He eats healthy food. He grows. He gardens. His friends come. I have one shed that's just called the Prosecco shed. It's got beautiful bunting painted inside.
Every girl needs a Prosecco shed.
Oh, I'm telling you, it's a beautiful thing. But we go down there of an evening. We look after each other. We have fun. We laugh. We have a little bit of quiet music. We don't disturb the neighbours. We have a fire. We eat. We barbecue together. These are special connections.
You're painting a wonderful picture of it. Very idyllic. Do you believe you'll remain on the land ultimately?
Oh, long silence. I am genuinely heartbroken today, and it's just going to be a massive, scary, horrible fight. I think we'll win. I really feel strongly. We've got this massive weight of people behind us, and we know we're right. I may not be the best at putting across the argument. I hope people amongst us are. And I encourage people to find out if you can be involved with us. We're on Twitter. I think we're Wellers a lot on there, but if you search Wellesbourne Allotment, you'll find us. We've got a campaign called SOWA, S-O-W-A. You get the pun. Yeah, Save our Wellesbourne Allotment. So if you Google that, you'll find us, or on the web. Please, if you're listening, you can hear the waver in my voice. Have a little think about finding out a bit more about us, because it's glib to say it's everybody's fight. But it is things that lots of us are facing. Allotments up and down the country face these kinds of challenges. It could be land next to you next. We all need to find out what's happening for each other. As Wellesbourne Allotment, we support everybody in our area in many different ways, not just with money from what we earn, but hopefully people can support us. And then they can come and enjoy our open days and things like that. Come to the village show and enjoy the fruits of our produce and hard work.
Yes, lovely to meet you.
Thank you for your time.
No, not at all. Thank you for making your case so passionately and eloquently this afternoon. We've put requests in naturally to speak to the diocese live on the programme to respond to their allotment holders. We are yet to hear whether that is possible. We've received a statement from them saying that the Glebe Committee which represents the diocese, met on the afternoon of the 30th of January, yesterday, considered all the issues raised by interested parties arising from the consultation on the possible disposal of land owned by the Coventry Diocesan Board, and after thorough discussion, the committee agreed to continue to look at ways to address the allotment holders' concerns against the background of the responsibilities of the Glebe Committee to effectively manage the asset of the Coventry Diocese Board of Finance. One possible option may involve the Allotment Association remaining with increased security on a single site, which would include the majority of their existing site. This and other possible options will be explored further with representatives of the Allotment Association in coming weeks. I can tell you that Jess is already pulling a face to that statement. So something tells me that this, as a story, we're going to be hearing more of in the coming weeks here on BBC Coventry in Warwickshire.
BBC Coventry.